Now, what is a liberal movement is incorrect. But I see before us an opportunity to address where the Black Lives Matter movement is wrong and to address psychiatry. Any superficial changes in legislation that Big Pharma and the government pass relating to psychiatry and its selection process, its screening process, and any other processes that involve people, especially black people, will be superficial. My main argument for separation is that real change cannot come for black people unless we separate. The revolutionary has two main priorities. One, to address the oppressor's ability to say, we'll stop oppressing you if. We will help you if. That's how he maintains power. He has the money. He uses it to put you in a situation where you're desperate or where you may be desperate. And then he says, we will help you if. That's like I'm part of an organization. We'll call it the Global Organization for Progress. And we are gang stalking you and we're setting the stage for you to be sabotaged, right? As an organization. And then I come with a pre-planned agenda. And I say, I will help you weather the storm if you do A, B, and C. If you change your stance on A, B, or C. You see that? That is the main control mechanism, the main control strategy. Psychiatry is the main control mechanism. Psychiatric institutions. Because it goes above and beyond the law. The law allows you a little wiggle room to defy the oppressor and to, do the right thing. But psychiatry and mental health is the psychological foundation for oppressing deviants, revolutionaries, and vulnerable individuals, the proletarian, the people. So therefore, the number one priority must be to address gang stalking and everything like it, psyops and everything like it. Because how are you going to do anything if they're more effectively turning the people against you and making them think in a way that is favorable to what they're trying to do? They have a favorable attitude toward the New World Order, a favorable sentiment, or at least they're in a state of mind that is conducive to bringing in the New World Order and further oppressing the people. And what's worse, to make the people think it's in their best interest to assist the minions of the New World Order. You see, this has to be the priority of the revolutionary. The elephant in the room. If they don't address that, they ain't doing shit. So gang stalking, psychiatry, psychology, these are the main things the people need to address. And when you don't see them addressing that, we're not making any progress. When you see them pretend to address it, superficial things that aren't really going to change anything, we're not making any progress. That's what's so bad about superficial legislation and controlled opposition is it is, easing the people's minds, right? It's an attempt to calm the people's nerves and say, hey, we're doing something about it. Don't worry. Everything's under control. And that's the problem now, isn't it? Everything is under control. It's controlled. So anyway, let's get into this article, shall we? 11-year-old black child in a school that has 7% white enrollment, and I'm doing this from memory now, and 79% white faculty. I did not see this article until I came home. I've been home for hours. I went shopping in the morning. Okay, it's 3:25 right now. I read the article probably about 10, 15 minutes ago. And I went outside to comment up on the hill. I came back, started making this video. This article proves a lot of my points at once. One, I made a video on my Rawbot channel way back in 2012 or something, 2013. And I said, in the future, being a black militant will be considered a mental illness. Now, you have to realize, the psychiatry is just waiting to get its hands on people. When you realize how few people are turned away from quote-unquote psychiatric help once they've been recommended for a screening or an evaluation or to see a psychiatrist by a school or especially by a court, you realize, hey, you know, part of the problem, perhaps even the majority of the problem, comes with the people like the police and the school and the judges and all these cowards who direct people to the psych ward in the first place. Now, what I am going through is the adult, revolutionary, uncontrolled warriors version of what this boy went through. Except for no one is sticking up for me. My parents are not sticking up for me like his were sticking up for him. And part of that is cultural as well. Because my dad married a white lady, and he is a lot of white culture. You know, he kind of, you know, I mean, he has his African roots, but his actual culture and how he relates to people, very white. So even in my household, there's a cultural divide. You know, when I was a thug, my dad was friends with the police. That puts things in his perspective. You know, the police officers having dinner at my house and shit. You know, so you got to see this thing for what it is. And in the title, I'm going to recommend this for the Santa Clara County Sheriff Department, and I'm going to try to be polite about it because they need to see this. They need to see that it is not okay to covertly drug someone and that the sentiments of society just might be turning against them. You know, they need to demand an end to the psychological operation against and the covert drugging of the top martial artist in American history. No one has ever done what I have. And not only are you going after someone for doing something which is an adult version of what that child did, right? Because there's certain aspects of that reference violence, you know? And violence, when referenced by a warrior, makes him feel violent. You know, we start talking about, you know, hanging people and lynching and police beatings and killing innocent people, killing children like Tamir Rice. You know, a warrior's blood starts to boil and he starts wanting to yell about who he wants to kill. So that is the adult warrior version of what this little boy, 11-year-old boy, went through. Oh, this goes deep, people. Because you will never hear these police officers say that they're wrong. They will never say, you know, we're going to stop doing this. We're going to put an end to the covert drugging. No. They will never say that. What they will say, wait for it, is we will help you if. We'll stop drugging you if. You see what I mean? Now, if a revolutionary can't do anything uncontrolled without having psyops run on him, without being drugged, if he can't reach out to people without them fearing that, how can he spread sacred morality? So again, the first goal of a revolutionary must be to address mental health and gang stalking. These are the things that enforce social norms. And social norms keep him from changing things. And it's always been like that. Iona State Hospital, drapetomania. It's always been like this. America has a long on-record history of psychiatric abuse that disproportionately affects people of African American and Black African descent. This goes deep, people. You gotta pay attention. And having token minorities on your staff doesn't make it okay. The people who did that to that child, right? There's 79% white staff, right? Which means there's 21% non-white staff. But did that stop them as a group? No, it did not. And what did they do? Go into damage control. You see what I mean? The main priority of a revolutionary must be to address psyops and these sorts of things, to really rally the people against it. And all your little liberal ninny friends on the news, you need to cut your ties with them if they don't start taking gang stalking seriously. If the New York Times continues to persist with their debauchery, their depraved immorality, if they refuse to recognize that psychological operations are real, you need to cut your ties with them and put them in their place, which is with the oppressor. Or you're not a revolutionary. Because this is not a small issue. This is the main priority of a real revolutionary. When you have psychiatry, force medicating, electroshock therapy, all these horrible, reprehensible things that they do, it is wrong to send people to the psych ward who don't want to go. Now, some people, believe it or not, they want help. They're saying, you know what? I'm in a really bad place. Take me there. The polishes should be talked to these people for a while. If they don't want to go, don't take them. Because guess what? They're going to come out the psych ward eventually anyway in a couple weeks. So why take their gun rights away and take them there in the first place? If they want to die, they can wait a couple fucking weeks. And a few happy pills aren't going to change their mind. But if they don't really want to die, then they're quite capable of coming to the conclusion that they need the oppressor's help. But when there is a racial component, my goodness, it becomes that much more despicable and detestable. When it is being used on black people in a place where there is less than 1% black people, for example, it screams cultural divide. With the lack of evidence, like you have seen in my case, it screams oppression. The political abuse of psychiatry and the political abuse of law enforcement. That is not helping anyone. That is not keeping the peace. Because when it gets out, you are setting the stage for racial strife and racial conflict. Which, whether or not you see it, we are headed toward because of the shootings and because of psychiatry. There's ways to avoid it. And the most practical way is to separate these white racists, these globalist Jews, these greedy pharmaceutical companies that are looking for vulnerable demographics to exploit will not stop doing what they're doing. It doesn't matter if you have 100,000 people who mean well in America. It's not going to change it. Even if we all marched on the White House, they might put some superficial legislation. It won't change. The only way for the revolutionary to even begin to address psyops, gang stalking, and psychiatry is to separate. To separate and create a strong black community that demonizes gang stalkers and even beats, tortures, and kills them if necessary. By any means necessary, we need to secure our civil rights, our human rights, and basic freedoms. And if you aren't with that, do us all a favor and don't pretend to be a real revolutionary. Just like if you are not prepared to beat me, do us all a favor and don't pretend that you are better. Thank you.
Those of you who've been watching, you know that I've proven my points for a long, long time. Notice the date, October 29th, 2013. I've been steadily giving you the same message about things. Look at that drugged up eyes. Look at, how I used to look, covertly drugged with psychiatry and how I look now. I have a lot more together because I've been off psych meds for a lot longer. Listen to how I sound. Look at my mannerisms.
Yes, you are watching White Power Network, and I am your token Uncle Tom. And today we'll be discussing the new mental disorder that has just come out in the DSM-7, where being a black militant is considered a mental disorder, and the more influence you have on society, the worse and more extreme the mental disorder is. New legislation and policy now allows us Uncle Toms and unscrupulous white folks to proceed with our malicious agenda we used to have to cover up. And we force medicate these people from day one and drug them until they are a bunch of babbling idiots. You have tuned in to your Jewish-owned, well, officially white-owned, Uncle Tom, White Power Network. Thank you.
All right, so this is back at a time when I was trying to, become the spiritual leader of the Crips, to make a long story short. I am not a gang member. I wasn't successful. That's why the annotations say that. Matter of fact, later on, make mental note, I'm going to delete that part. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that right after this video. I'm going to take that off from the annotations. But notice it's October 29th, 2013. We're at October 18th, 2016. Quite the irony, right? 11 days. So, 11 days would have been the anniversary, the 3-year anniversary of this video. And the Washington Post article comes out. And that's what the next, that's what the clip before this is about. I'll put this at the end.